Hey everyone, so we are back, and in this video we are going to build our APIs. Okay, right now we haven't built any endpoint. Okay, so in the last video we completed our user schema. Now we are going to make use of this schema inside our auth controller. So what you are going to learn inside this particular video is that how to basically use our schema to create records, to delete records, to update it. Okay, so that's the kind of thing you are going to learn. And also we are going to now make use of this catch asynchronous function to build our controllers in such a way that we are able to catch errors gracefully and handle them. Also you are going to learn how to read the request body, how to send response, and when we set up our routing you are also going to see how to handle the middlewares. Okay, that means how to basically structure it in such a way that you can execute multiple middlewares in any particular action. So before starting to write code, let me just write some comment over here. If you are watching this video, then make sure you also let me know in the comment section if you are liking this or not. If you have any doubts, you can let me know in the comment section. Okay, now let's start by writing code over here. So the first thing you see is we need to register new user. Okay, now we are going to create functions over here. In simple words, we are just creating functions. Okay, now we are also going to export them. So here I'm just going to write exports dot register. Now please note that this register is the name of the function. Okay, and this will be equal to catch async. Now this catch async is another function inside the utilities folder. So I'm just going to import it over here. As you can see, it's imported. Now inside this function, we need to pass another function because when we declare this catch async, you can see it requires a function as the parameter. So now we need to pass that, and here I'm just going to create an arrow function inside it. Okay. Now you can see inside catch asynchronous, I have passed this arrow function. Okay, and also we can mark this one as asynchronous because inside it we are going to make use of the await keyword. Okay, so this is just a simple JavaScript concept that whenever we are writing await keyword, then we should make the function asynchronous. Okay, otherwise we are going to get into an error. Yeah, I will make the playlist of all these videos. Actually, not a playlist. I'm going to actually combine all these videos. Okay, so by tomorrow, which is 2nd October, 6 p.m., I'll be able to complete this app. Okay, which means every part will be streamed live, and then I'm going to combine all the recorded parts into just one single video, and that video is going to have timestamp for each particular concept. So let's say we have divided our streams into, let's say, 10 parts, so you'll get the timestamps over there. Okay, so now let's again go back to writing code. Here we are creating our function, and as you can see inside catch asynchronous, here what is happening, this is a middleware which is going to be executed. Now let me tell you that each middleware which comes, when a route matches and the flow is passed to a middleware, each middleware is going to get access to these three arguments: request, response, and next function. Okay, so we are taking these three arguments and passing this to the inner function, as you can see over here. So that means we are going to get access to request, response, and next function over here because this is the inner function that we have passed inside catch asynchronous. Okay, so now I'll tell you how to make use of request body, response, and the next. Okay, first thing, we need some data in order to create a user. Okay, so here I'm just going to write request dot body because we are going to make a post call. Okay, and in the post call we have like several ways to pass the data, and what I like is passing data inside the body, but we can also pass it as the params. Okay, and also as a query parameter. I'll tell you all the ways possible. Okay, but for now we are just going to make use of request.body in order to get the data. And we also need to make sure that on the front end side, when we are integrating this API, we pass the data inside body. So when we do that, it will be clear. For now, just know that inside request body, we are going to get the data. Okay, so what we are going to get, let's take a look at our UI. Inside the sign up form, you see there are these fields. name, email, password, and confirm password. Okay, so here I'm going to get the same thing: name, email, password, and confirm password. Actually, this confirm password is only to make sure that the user remembers their password. So we can even ignore this one because we're not going to store this fourth parameter inside our schema. So I'm just going to write name, email, and password. Okay. Then, as a next step, what we are going to do, we are going to check inside our database if another user exists with this email or not. Because let me tell you, inside this user.js where we have defined this schema, I also want to do one more thing. I want to make it unique. Now, when I'm saying unique, it means that inside, let's say we have a collection, or you can imagine it like a file where we have multiple users' records. Then each record is going to contain a unique email, or we can also say it like that: no two users are going to have the same email. Okay, so what is going to happen if a user tries to sign up with an email that has already been used? They are going to get an error. Okay, so here I'm just going to check the condition existing user. So let me find if there is any existing user in our database with this email. So let's write await user. Now this user is going to be the model over which we are going to make the query. So this user, as you can see, it's going to be auto imported from model slash user, and on this model I want to call find one method. Now there are some predefined methods that you can use, and let me tell you where you can find more information about it. So you have to visit Mongo's website. Okay, so Mongoose, which is an ODM. Here you can see. So object modeling. So what is going to happen? You can just search for inside the documentation, search for the methods like we are you know learning about the find method. So I can just simply write inside the search box find. Okay, and let's see what we get. So here you can see find documents. How to find documents? We are going to see several methods. The first one is model.find. Okay, and here you can see what you need to pass inside it. First of all, we have to pass the filter, then projection, and then options at the end. Okay, then there is another find by id. There are lots of these: find by id and delete, find by id and update. Okay, so when I use one, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about it. Like currently we are using this find one, and as the name suggests, it's going to help us find just one document from a collection. Okay, so we need to pass the conditions as the first argument, which must be satisfied in order to get that document. So this curly bracket, inside this curly bracket, we are going to write that condition. Now tell me, what is the condition? It is very simple. Here you can see inside user.js, we have a property called email. So if the email of any of the record matches with this email, then we are going to find that user which already exists. So here I'm just going to write email is equal to this email. Email key in any of the document, if it matches with the provided email, then that means we already have an existing user. Okay, but this is not enough, because there is a possibility that one user just came up to our website and they tried to sign up with our application. They completed the first step, okay, creating account, but let's say the user dropped at this point where they have to verify their account. So what is going to happen in this case? We are going to have one record with that particular email inside our database, but that user is not actually a part of our application because they haven't verified their email. So I'm going to add another condition over here, and that condition is status. Sorry, not status but verified. Let me just check the field. Inside user.js we have verified. Okay, so if this verified is true, then only it means that we already have an existing user. Okay, if this is not true, then that means we don't have an existing user with that particular email. So what we are going to do, or we can actually make it like this: verified set to false. I'm actually going to check if we have uh, you know any document where we have the verified status set to false, then that user exists, that email exists, but we need to delete that document. Okay, and after that we are going to create a fresh one. So over here we need to write the condition. We can also do it like this: if existing user dot verified, we are going to check the condition if it is true or not. If it is equal to true, then that means we need to throw an error. Okay, email already in use. Okay, this is what we are going to tell the user. But in the other case, where we have the existing user, so let me just write here else if, and here we are going to compare this condition: existing user dot verified is not true, or we can also write it like false. If it is set to false, then in this case we have a existing user but the property is set to false. So in this case we are going to just rewrite the document, rewrite document and create new user. Okay, and there can be a third case where the existing user is not found. So let me actually make these two conditions like this: we have an existing user document and this condition. Here again I'm going to modify it like this: we have an existing user and then this condition, second condition, is also satisfied, and then the last one in which we don't find any existing user. So in this case there is no previous record. So what is going to happen, we are going to create a new record in this one. Okay, so I hope you understand that there can be three possible cases because we are maintaining two fields and we need to decide based on that. So first of all we are getting the data from the request body. After that we are finding the document which has this particular email provided by the user, and then we are checking the condition. If we find the existing user document and on that document if the verified property is true, then that means email is already in use, so throw an error. In the other case, when existing user document is found but it's not verified, then you need to rewrite the document, okay, and proceed. When and in the third case, when there is no existing user found with the given email, then we just need create a new record. So let's now do what we need to right over here. So in this case, when the email is already in use, we are going to just simply send a response back to the user. Okay, so here let me tell you how we are going to send the response. First of all we need to write res means response dot status. Now here I can set the status code. So there are status code from 2 to 5, which means 200, 201. You have also seen, you must have seen 400, 500 code. These all these status code have a specific meaning. Okay, so when we want to throw an error, okay, which means the data provided by the user is wrong or some validation failed, so in that case we send a status code 400. If something breaks on our server, that means it's a fault of server, then we send a status code starting with 5, okay, like 500. When everything is correct we send a status code with 200. Okay, and in case of like cached response we send 300. You are also going to see that one as well. So I'll show everything to you inside the log that we get inside our terminal. Let me know if you have any doubts. I can just answer everything inside the comment section. Now what we are going to do over here, response dot status 400 dot json, we are going to send a json response. Okay, so here I'm just going to in every case I'm going to set the status to either error or success. Since in this case we are sending an error, so I'm setting status to error and also a message. So the error message over here will be email already in use. Okay, I hope this is clear. Then in this second case, when we need to rewrite the document, what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the properties on this existing user. So what we will do, just write existing user, or we can also write it like this: await user dot find one and update. Here you can also search for it. So inside our this documentation, here you can see we have a method called find one, then find one and delete, find one and replace. What I need is find one and update. So here I'm just going to use this method, find one and update. Now inside this, first of all we need to write a condition. Okay, so the condition is email should match. So here I'm going to write email property should match with this email. And when this is matched, I want to add the properties I want to rewrite. Okay, so here I'm just going to update the name, and also I'm going to update the password of the user. These are the two things that we want to update. Okay, and when we make a change, I want to pass the configuration option, like I want the new document to be returned as a result. So here I'm going to write, let me just write over here, let new user. Okay, now this new user is undefined at the start, but I'm just going to assign it the value over here. So let's write new underscore user is equal to the result of this expression. Now when this expression is run, if I don't pass this new true, then what is going to happen, the previous record before update will be returned. Okay, but I want the new record to be returned from this function, so I am setting new true. And also another thing, which is validate modified only. Okay, so validate modified only. This is going to make sure that only that means the validation runs only on those fields which are getting modified, like name and password. So even if we have an email like validation setup for this email field, it's not going to run because we are only updating these two fields. Okay, so that's the meaning of this second option. Here we created a new user, okay, and we stored that new user inside this variable. Now in the third case, we are just going to create a fresh document. So let me just write await user dot create. In this one, we are using another method called create. Here I'll just pass the keywords name, email, and password. Okay, now I'm just going to assign new user equal to this one. Okay, now when all these cases are successfully run, what we are going to do, here we already returned response if the all user already existed with that email. Now after these two cases are run, else if and else, we are going to now send another response to the user. Okay, so at the end, I'm just going to call the next function. And when we call this next function, I'm going to place this send OTP as the next middleware. So here now we need to create this one. So let's write exports dot send OTP. For now, you can just imagine like we are some writing some functions. Okay, simple functions. And when I do the routing setup, you'll understand why I have created in such a way. So let's write asynchronous request response and next. These are the arguments of this function. And again, this is a simple arrow function. Okay, and before sending it to the next middleware, that means the send OTP, we are going to do one more thing over here. Let me just write request dot user underscore user ID equals new user dot underscore ID. Now this underscore ID is a unique ID which is going to be generated by MongoDB. Okay, when we create a document, so I'm just passing the ID property to the next middleware using this request. Okay, so on this request, we are going to have this property user ID, which will be equal to the newly created users underscore ID, or you can also call it object ID. So now we can make use of that inside this send OTP, which is going to be the next middleware in line. So here I'm just going to get, or you can also call it destructuring this user ID property out of request. So let me write user ID inside curly bracket is equal to request. We are just destructuring the property. Now what I'm going to do over here, first of all, before sending the OTP, we should generate the OTP. So let me write generate new OTP. Okay, now in order to generate the OTP, we are going to make use of a package called OTP generator. Let me see if we have already installed that or not. So I cannot see it, so that means we have not installed it. Let me take you back to the browser. Okay, and over here we need to get a package from npm.js. So let me just search for it. It's called OTP generator. OTP generator, yeah, so this is the one, OTP generator. There are lots of other similar packages, so it's up to you. You can use any one that you like. Okay, I'm just going to use this first one. Actually, this is not correct. Let me check in my project which one I am using. So just give me a minute. It's OTP dash generator. Okay, this is the one with version 401 at the time of recording of this video. So I'm just going to copy this installation command. Then I can go back to my terminal window and I'll paste it over here. Let's get this package. Okay, so the command ran successfully. Let me just verify. Okay, over here now we have the package installed. So let me go back to the auth controller, and first of all we should get this package imported at the top. So here we are going to write const OTP generator. OTP generator equals require. Okay, and over here I need to write the package which is OTP dash generator. Now we need to make use of this package inside this function in order to generate a new OTP, and that is actually going to be very simple. Let me just tell you how to do that. Here we are going to call a method on this OTP generator. So let me write OTP generator dot, and then you can see this there is a generate method. Let's call this one, and inside this generate we need to pass some configuration. First of all, the length. Okay, here you can see if you hover over it, you will see it requires length and the options. So length is 6. I want an OTP of 6. Actually, it will be 4 because in our UI you can see we have this option for entering 4 digits, right? So that is why I'm going to set the digit of OTP equal to 4. Then next we need to provide it some options. So the options will be I don't want uppercase alphabets, so I'm going to set it to false. Then the next thing is I don't want any special characters inside my OTP, so I'm also going to set it to false. And we also don't want any lowercase alphabets, so let's also set it to false. Then what is left? Digits. Obviously we want just digits, so I'm going to leave it to true, because if I'm not passing the value as false, then it's automatically true. Okay, and how do I know this thing? Because I have read the documentation of this particular package. Okay, you can also do that. It's written over here how to use this thing. Okay, that all these digits, lowercase alphabet, uppercase, and special characters, they are true by default. Okay, so there are two arguments that needs to be passed inside generate function: length and options. Option include these four things. Okay, and here is an example how to use it. Now let's get back to our code base. Since we have generated a new OTP, so I'm just going to store it into a constant. Let's call it new underscore OTP, and the result of this generate function will be stored over here. Then the next step is setting the OTP expiry time, because I told you that we are going to make our OTP expirable in the last video as well. So this OTP is going to expire after 10 minutes from generation. So date dot now, this is going to give us the current timestamp. Then into this timestamp I'm going to add 10 minutes, but this has to be added after converting it into milliseconds. So let's just write 10 into 60, this means 600 seconds, and then we multiply it by 1000. So let me also write it in the comment format that this is just 10 minutes after OTP is created. So after we create the OTP, then 10 minutes from that point, this OTP is going to be expired. Okay. Then we can just write one more thing over here. Const user equals. Now we are going to find the user with the help of this user ID. Since we have the ID of the user's document, so we are going to write await user dot find by ID and update. So here we are going to use another method which is provided by Mongoose, actually, find by ID and update. Please make sure that you are not making any mistake, any naming mistake in this method. Otherwise, it's not going to work and you will get an error. So first thing is we need to pass the ID, which is the user ID that we have got. And since we are updating the document, so we need to tell as the second argument what we want to update. So here you can see inside the user document, we are going to store two things: OTP as well as the OTP expiry time. Okay. So what we are going to do over here, I'm just going to write OTP. Okay. OTP, and I want to set the OTP as the string. So let me just make it like this, OTP dot string. I'm going to force it into a string even if it's a number. Okay. Then also we can write OTP expiry time colon OTP expiry time. Okay. Now you can also make sure that this keyword is actually similar, because if it is different, okay, everything is in small letter, every spelling should match along with this underscore. Otherwise, you are not going to correctly update that particular value inside the document. So make sure everything is correct. Don't make any spelling mistake. I'm just warning you about it because it happens many times. And when you are new to building APIs and this kind of stuff, you'll be scratching your head for a very long time thinking what is going wrong. But it's just these simple mistakes that usually happen. Okay. And it's not a big thing. Whenever you are learning, you are in the learning phase, you're going to make such mistakes. Okay. That's the learning path everyone has to follow. So here, as a next step, since we have updated the document, and we are going to also pass this option, third option, which is new true, and validate modified only, which is also going to be true. That means I want the updated document, not the document before updation happened. Okay. So this user, new user, is actually going to that is going to be the updated document. Okay. Then as a next step, we need to send the OTP via mail. So here, I'm not going to actually configure mailer right now. So I'm just going to leave a comment that I have to do this task after creating the API. So here I'll write send mail, send OTP via mail. Okay. Send OTP via mail. So we'll do this thing. And after this is done, we are going to now send the response back to the user. Like, since in this case, everything happened, according to the flow, everything is going correct smoothly. So we want to send a success status code. 200 means everything went successfully. Okay. Let me also set the status to success, and message property, I'm going to set it to OTP sent successfully. Now, when we integrate, there are actually two things left before we use it and see it live. Let me tell you what is that. First of all, there is no way to actually execute these two functions right now. Okay, like registering new user and also sending the OTP, because inside our backend we haven't set it up the routing. And routing is actually going to allow our service to basically know when a user is hitting that particular endpoint. That means they want to create a new user or login, or they are requesting for a new OTP, all those kind of stuff. So when that happens, that particular request will come inside this register function. Okay. And all this logic will be executed as we have written over here. And after this next function is called, due to our routing logic, the flow will be shifted to the send OTP. Now send OTP is going to get the newly created user's ID in this format. That means as a property on the request. So we are destructuring it after creating the new OTP. Oh, actually I made a mistake over here. Instead of writing new OTP, I just wrote OTP. Good thing I noticed it over here. Okay, so now we are using this new OTP and we are converting it into string. Okay, actually this method is not correct. It has to be two string. That's why I'm seeing that three dots at the bottom. So now it's correct. After converting it to a string, I have stored it inside the user's document, and also we have set it an OTP expiry time, that is 10 minutes after the OTP was created. Then we have to send the OTP via email, and after everything went smoothly, we just sent a success response to the user. Okay, and user is going to see this message on their screen. So this is what's going to happen when, let me just come back to this screen. When the user fills up their information and they click on this create button, then these two functions will be running in the backend. Okay, and as a result, in the end, if everything goes smoothly, they are going to see this message on their screen. Okay, so still there is some work left, like sending the OTP via email and also setting up the routing. Then we also have to integrate this in our front end. So we are going to do that. Don't worry about that. Everything will be clear as you go through this application. Okay. So let me now work on this verify OTP. Okay. So how we are going to verify the OTP, that is also important for us. Okay. because after verification of OTP is successful, the user will be created. So let me just write over here exports dot, and let's call this one verify OTP. Okay. Now again, this is going to be a simple function. Okay. So I'm just wrapping it with catch async so that we can catch the errors in the asynchronous function. Then we are going to get the three arguments: request, response, next, as I explained you in the first controller. Okay. Then inside this verify OTP, we are going to actually get these two things from the user. Okay, inside request body, the first is email and the second is OTP. So this is going to come from request dot body. Okay, now what we have to do, we are going to first of all find the user with this particular email. So let me write const user equals, and this will be simple. We just need to make a query to our database. So on this user model, I'm going to call this method find one, and inside this find one, I'm just going to write the email that I want to basically find by, and the second thing is OTP expiry time. Let me show you that here we are going to actually make use of operator $GT, and here I'll just pass date dot now, and I'll call it. So what this query actually means, let me break it down into simple words for you. So this query is simply saying that uh, we are asking our MongoDB database to find a document from the user's collection where the email keyword matches the email provided over here inside this request.body for this particular request. And also, that document must also satisfy the other condition, which is this field OTP expiry time that must be greater than the current timestamp. What does it mean? That the OTP hasn't expired already. If the OTP has already expired, then the OTP expiry time will be less than the current time. Okay. So we are actually finding a document, user document, where the email matches and where the OTP expiry time is less than the current time. If we get a user, then that means the OTP is still not expired, and also the an email, or you can call it a user, exists with this given email. So what we are going to do, we are going to check a condition. We are going to say if not user. Then what does it mean? There can be two cases. Either the email is invalid or the OTP has expired. So in this case, I'm going to return a response back to the user. Okay. So here I'll just write response dot status. We're going to send 400 status code because the request was, resolved with an error. So let's write status error. Let me also tell you that it's up to you what you want to send inside this JSON data. So it's not mandatory to send a status or message or any other keyword inside this JSON that you are sending. You can even send it just empty. Okay. So everything will be fine, but we are doing it just for us. Okay. This is how I do. I send a status and also message, and in some cases, I'm also going to send some data back to the user. So when the error happens, I'm going to say email is invalid. Either this is the case or OTP expired. This is what it means when we don't find a user document. Now, in the other case, when the user document is found along and it also satisfies this condition, OTP expiry time is greater than the current time. So, in this case, what is going to happen? We are going to actually, let me also write it like this: if user dot verified. So, if this condition that means not user is false, then that means user is existing. Then we are going to check the next condition, which is user dot verified. If it is already verified, then we are going to again throw an error saying that user is already verified. So let's write res dot status, which means response dot status. In this case, again, we are going to send an status code of 400, which means error, resolved in error. Okay. Here, the JSON data that I'm going to pass is status set to error, and the message that I'm going to display to the user on the front end will be email is already verified. Okay, email is already verified, because that is what is the meaning of this particular condition. If this condition satisfies, this means email is already verified. Then let me write another condition here. in this third case, I'm going to check if the OTP is matching with this given OTP. That means the OTP in the user document is same as this OTP. So here I'm going to actually write a condition. But before that condition, let me actually go back over here inside the user document, and now I'm going to teach you about the hooks. So in each model, not the user model, I'm my tongue slipped over there, so sorry for that. In each model that you create inside Mongoose, you can actually create hooks. Let me show you how. So here, as you can see, the name of this schema is user schema. So let me just write user schema. And when you write dot, then you are going to actually see a lot of things that you can do with this thing. And what I'm interested in right now is this pre and post. So we are going to use this thing. And this pre and post, they are called hooks. Okay. And when you pass this double double quote or single quote in the first place and press control and spacebar, you're going to see lots of things. Now what is this? These are the events that happens during the whenever we are processing or MongoDB is processing that particular request. uh, One of these things is going to happen, or multiple things, like the document will be saved. I'm interested in pre-save. So let me actually break it down into simple terms for you again. Whatever logic I'm going to write over here, that will be executed before the document is saved. That means written into the memory. What is going to happen whenever we make some request to the database? Database is actually taking that request from us, okay, through API, and it is making some changes into the memory. That means it's updating, deleting, or creating new records. So before the document is saved, I want to execute some logic over here. And since this logic is going to be, uh, you know, asynchronous, so I'm marking the function, callback function that I'm creating over here. I'm marking it as asynchronous. Okay. I don't want to create a named function, so I'll just remove this name. Okay. And the parameter that we are going to receive is just next function, so that we can call the next hook. And let me write the condition that I want to check over here. Here we can actually access the this keyword. Okay. This keyword in JavaScript, actually it refers to the instance. So here this means the user model. Okay. The user model which is currently getting updated. So there is a condition that method which we can check, called is modified, and inside this we can pass a property. So here you can see this particular user document has a lots of property, and the property that I want to basically check if it has been modified or not is the OTP property. So here I'm just going to write double or single quote, and here you can see all the options. So we can check if any of these properties is modified. I want to check if OTP is modified or not. And here let me write the condition. If not, this is modified, which is OTP, or there is another condition, not this dot OTP. If our document doesn't have OTP property, or if OTP is not modified, then in this case we are not going to do anything. We'll just return from this hook. Okay. This is the condition in which we want to just exit this function without doing anything. Let me also write the same thing that I told you in the comment format. So I'll write only run this function if OTP is modified. Okay. So in this case we are actually checking if OTP is not modified, and if that is true, we are just returning with calling next function. Okay. But if the OTP is modified, that means this condition fails. Then in that case return won't be executed. So what is going to happen? Then in that case we are going to hash the OTP with the cost of 12. What I mean with the cost of 12, like there is a is measurement of strength. Okay. Like how better this particular anything is, hashed, and it's like if the hash number is greater, then it will be hard to decode it. Okay. But also there is a downside to using a bigger number, because it's going to consume a lot of CPU power. Okay. So I try to use this value of 12 because it's the moderate value, not too low, not too high. So it's best for our use case. So here what I want to do is this dot OTP, we can access OTP property for this particular document, and then I'm going to uh, execute bcrypt. Let me write bcrypt. First of all, we need to get the package imported at the top. So let me write over here const bcrypt equals require, and this is going to come from the package called bcrypt.js. Okay, so now we have this bcrypt package. We are going to use this thing to encrypt our OTP. So let me write bcrypt dot, and we want to hash it. So let me execute this hash function over this, and then we need to pass the OTP that we want to hash. So it will be this dot OTP, and I want to make sure that it's in the string format. So let me execute this to string method. So after this, it will be converted to string, and I want to hash it with the cost of 12. Okay, so what is going to happen? This expression on the right side, it's just going to take the OTP. Okay, if it is modified, that means it needs to be hashed. So this particular line is going to run only when the OTP is modified. OTP will be hashed, and this will be stored into the document. As a next step, I want to just log something into the console. So I'll just write console.log. I'll say this dot OTP dot to string. Okay, and here I'll just write from pre-save hook. This is just for the logging purpose, so that I can know, yeah, so this is running when the OTP is generated. Okay, and after this, we are again going to call the next function. So this is something which we don't need to call. It will be called automatically before saving a document, and all this logic will be run. Now back inside this auth controller, what we are going to do now, we need to basically check OTP, this OTP, and we need to match it with the OTP that is stored inside the user document. But there is a problem, that the OTP which will be stored inside the user document will not be, a simple string anymore. It will be in the encrypted format. So if I try to match it directly by writing this thing, OTP equals user dot OTP, then it's never going to return true. This condition will always be false, because this OTP is going to be a 4-digit string, but this OTP, it's going to be a very big hash. Okay, so I need another way, okay, to basically match the OTP. So let's create a method over here. We call it method. Right now, I told you how to create hook. This is called pre-save hook. Okay, on that particular user schema. Now let's learn how to create method. We can also create methods in schema. So again, we need to write the schema name, which is user schema. Then here I'll write methods, and the method name that I want to create over here is correct OTP. Now this name is up to you. You can call it whatever you want. Instead of correct OTP, you can rename it any other thing. So let's create the function. I want it to be asynchronous again, because we are going to execute some asynchronous code inside this function, and this function is just going to receive two things. I'm going to call the first one as candidate OTP. Now what is candidate OTP? Candidate OTP is the OTP which is provided by the user to us through the form. So you see this form on our front end. The OTP that will be sent by the user through this form, that is going to be the candidate OTP. Now I want to compare this candidate OTP with the user OTP. Here user OTP means the OTP which is stored in the hashed format in user document. Okay, and let's see how we are going to compare these two. So we are going to compare it and return the result from here. So let me just write return await. Again, since we use this bcrypt package to hash it, now this bcrypt package will be used to compare them. Okay, so on this bcrypt we also have this another thing called compare. Okay, now here we are going to pass the two things, candidate OTP which is the unhashed OTP, and the user OTP which is in the hashed format. Now this particular library is going to compare them, and it's going to decide whether the candidate OTP is equal to user OTP or not. Okay, so there is no direct way to compare the two and return true or false. This is the only way we can get to know if the hashed OTP is equal to the OTP which is submitted by the user. So now we are going to make use of this correct OTP method inside of our controller. So we can just write inside, instead of this condition, I'm going to write another condition. Let's see what that is. So here I'm going to write user, which is our, the result of this query, user dot find one user. So on this user we have a method that I can call, and it's called correct OTP. Now again, please make sure that this is spelling correct OTP is matching exactly with this one. Okay, because the method name should have to be, match. Now when we call this thing, we just need to provide the two arguments that are needed over here, candidate OTP and user OTP. This candidate OTP is the OTP that we are getting from the form in the front end. So this is the OTP, and the user OTP is user, which is the document, and we are going to read the OTP property on it. And since you know that this function is asynchronous in nature, so I want to add await keyword in front of it. Okay, so await user dot correct OTP. Now I want to check if this condition is not, if this condition comes out to be true, that means OTP is correct. Okay, then this negation is going to turn it into false, and vice versa. So what is going to happen, I'm just going to return a response from this. I will say that response dot status 400 dot json. Now why I'm returning 400, because if the inner condition, uh, if this condition is true, then that means the inner condition was false, that means OTP was not correct. So in that case we have to tell the user that the OTP that you have submitted is incorrect. So let me just return this JSON, which has these two properties: status set to error, and message, it's going to be OTP is incorrect. Okay, so after checking if the OTP doesn't match, then we are going to send this response back to the user. And then let's now talk about the last case, in which if all this logic is run, okay, and we reach to this point before returning from this function, let me also not forget adding this return. Okay, so if we are at this point, then we need to be, when this means OTP is correct. If the flow reaches this point, it simply means OTP is correct. So what we have to do, first of all, get the user document, and on this document we have to get the verified property. Verified property, you can see we have defined it over here, and it can take boolean value, either true or false. By default it's false, so after the OTP is correct, I'm going to set it to true. Okay, and also I'm going to set the OTP property to undefined. Now setting the this OTP property to undefined means, if you see it in your MongoDB compass, then it won't be visible. Okay, this OTP property will be gone from the user document, but you can again define it. Okay, this is only needed during the sign up process. So if let's say in the future, if we make some changes to our application logic, okay, and we create this OTP property again or assign it, then it will be created, no problem, because it's defined inside the schema. But after the verification is done, I'm just going to set it to undefined. And after making these two changes, we must save our document, so we can, on this user, we can execute the save method. Okay, now inside the save method, let's pass true, new to true, and validate modified only also true. This means we are going to get the new user, or you can also call it updated user, as a result of uh, this thing which is going to run on the right side. Okay, so we'll get the updated user. And as a last step, when the user is created, I want to create token. Now this token is actually JSON web token, which is going to be used for authenticating the other API calls. So let me write token, and here I'm going to actually make use of a function called sign token. This function doesn't comes in inbuilt, we have to create it on our own, we haven't done it yet. So in order to sign a token, we just need one thing, which is user dot underscore id. This user property And on this property we are going to sorry, this record, on this record we have a property called underscore id, which you will see inside the MongoDB database. Uh, each record has its own underscore id property. Okay, so we are just going to make use of that string to sign a token which will be unique to every user. Okay, it will be basically like an identity card of every user. So whenever they want to do something like sending a message to other user, they will submit this token to the backend, and then backend is going to identify, okay, so this message is coming from this particular user. That's how we know, that's how we get to know who is performing this particular action. Okay, let's now focus on creating the sign token function. So I'll go to the top of this auth controller, and over here, before creating this register new user, let's create a function called sign jwt token. Okay, now here I'm going to sign the jwt token. So let me just create this function. I'll write const sign token equals, and this is just going to be a simple arrow function, and here I'll just return in front of this arrow I'll just write a single line, and that will be jwt. Now we don't have access to jwt because we haven't imported that package over here, so let's get that. Const jwt equals require, and over here I need to write the package name, which is json web token. Now since we have the jwt imported over here, so now I can access it, jwt dot. And on this you can see we have these three options: decode, sign, or verify. Here, since we are creating a sign token function, so I obviously want to sign a token, so let's use this one. And over here we need to pass the payload. Payload is an object which contains some information that you want to basically exchange with the client, okay, through this token. So here I just want to create a token using user id, and that user id we are going to receive as the argument. So I'm just passing it over here, and as a second argument you need to pass the jwt token. So let me write over here process.env, and here let me just get my jwt token. So we can go inside our config.env file, and here you can see this is token key. This is what I want to use inside auth controller. So let me just write process.env.token key. Okay, so now this sign token function is ready, so we can use it inside verify otp. Okay, so we have used that function, and after this is done we can send a response back to the user. Okay, so from this function now we are going to send a response. Let me write response dot status. Since everything is perfect, otp is verified, user is created, so what we are going to do, we are going to write response dot status 200, which means operation was successful, and I am going to return the json response. So let me write json, and inside this curly bracket I'm going to write status success. Status is success, and message it's going to be otp verified successfully. Okay, this is what I want to display to the user on screen. Then I also want to pass this token to the user in the json format, and also I'm going to send the user id. So let me write user dot underscore id. Actually, since we are not using this updated user, so let me remove this const assignment. Okay, and now our flow is complete. That means we will be now able to register a user. After registering it, we will be able to send the otp, and after sending the otp we can also verify it. Okay, so now we are left with login and protect middleware. Okay, we need to create that, but before doing that, let me check if I have any questions in the comment section. Okay, so there are no new questions in the comment section, so I'll just continue with building the login flow. Okay, so what we have to do inside the login, again we are going to create our function, simple function. Let's write exports dot, and this time I'm going to call this function login. Okay, let's again make use of the catch asynchronous function, and inside this we are going to pass another asynchronous function, and the arguments will be request, response, and next. Okay, this is an arrow function. Let me write the body of this function. So when we are trying to log into our application, what data are we going to pass. You can see over the browser. Over here you can see when we try to sign into our application, we are going to just submit email and password. So I'm going to write password, okay, like this. After writing this, we want to check if both email and password are there. That means they are not undefined. So here I'm just going to introduce a simple check. We are checking for email and password. If we don't find any one of these, then we are just going to return an error response actually. So let me just write return response dot status. Let's set the status to 400, since we are going to tell the user that email and password are both required. You should pass it. So let me write a status, and over here inside the status, let's, sorry, not a status, I made a mistake. Here it has to be .json. Okay, now it's correct. So here the status is going to be error, and the message, it's going to be both email and password are required. You can actually customize this message, write whatever you like over here, but this is what I want to tell to the user, so I'm writing it. Okay, I hope this is correct. And after this, let's actually find the user based on the email. So here again, one more time, I'm going to write await user dot, and then let's actually again use this find one method, since we already have the email and I just want to find one document. So here the condition will be email keyword in that document that matches must be equal to the email value that is coming from the request body. Okay, so when this condition matches, we are going to get access to the user. I want to get access to the user, and along with that, I also want to get the password field, because during login, I just want to match the password provided by the user in request body and the password which is contained inside the user document. So here I am explicitly chaining this select method and adding this plus sign in front of password, which means I want to include this in the result of the find one query. Okay, so this user is going to contain this password field. Okay, now here again I'm going to check a condition. I'm going to check if after running this query, if we find the user or not. If the user is not found, or if the user is found but it doesn't has this password field, then we are going to throw an error. Okay, so let me just write response dot status 400 dot json. And here in this case, what is wrong, since we are not able to find any document with this particular email, so I'm just going to say in my error message that no record found for this email. No record found for this email. That means you have just simply entered an email that doesn't exist in our database. Okay, now we have checked this condition, and also I must return from this function after doing this. Otherwise the flow is going to execute other things. So please make sure you don't forget to write this return over here. Now after checking this condition, I want to finally check if the password matches or not. So here I'm going to write if not user or not, and here I'm just going to write await user dot correct password. Remember, we created a method on this user schema called correct OTP. Similarly, now we're going to create a correct password method to check if the password provided by the user when they filled up the form, login form, and the password in the database are correct or not. So we are going to pass the password from the request body to this function as the first argument, and then from this user document, we are going to read the password field, which is actually going to be the encrypted form of password. So this correct password method is going to make use of bcrypt package, okay, and compare the two things, and it will return us true or false. Now based on that, if this condition is satisfied, okay, first of all let's go back to the user and make some changes over here. First of all, I want to create a pre-save hook for hashing the password. So here I'm just going to write only run this function if, not is, it should be if. So let me correct that. only run this function if, in this case, I want to hash the password. So I'm going to say if the password is modified, let's also update it over here. So here I want to, check for password field is modified, and I'm checking for the password field, which is this one. Okay. And also this dot password. Let's also make the change over here. Here it will be this dot password, and here I should write has the password with the cost of 12. It's the same thing that we have done for the OTP. Okay, so you should be, it should be easy for you to understand what we are doing over here, because we did the same thing with the OTP. Okay, so now we have hashed the password, okay, inside this pre-save hook. So we should also create a method for checking if the password provided by the user and the one that is stored inside the user document is correct or not. So correct password, this is the method that we have created. Here it's going to take candidate password as the first argument and the user password as the second one. Okay, user password means the password that is stored inside the uh, MongoDB collection. Okay, in the hashed format. Let me just pass these two things over here, and it's going to return either true or false. So we can just go back to our auth controller, and inside login, when we are checking this condition, if we don't have a user or if correct password is returning false, then in that case it means that the password is not correct. So let's return uh, an error an error response. So here I'm just going to write status dot response dot status. It will be 400 since the request resolved with error. And then in my JSON data I'm going to say the status is error and the message is either email or password is not correct. We can just simply write incorrect. Okay, so I hope you understand what we have done till this point. Everything should be clear. Then if all these conditions are run, and if the flow reaches after this line, then that means the password is actually correct. So when the password is correct and the document is also found, then this means we should give the user a signed token. Okay, user has been uh, authenticated or logged in successfully. So here again we are going to call the signed token method. Let's get the user. We have the access to user, so I'm just going to write user dot and access the underscore id field. Okay, so you can see inside signed token we need to pass the user's id. So we are doing that over here. After creating a token, we need to send the response back to the user. So let me write response dot status. Since everything went smoothly and user is signed in, so I'm going to write response dot status 200. 200 means okay response, everything is great. So yeah, inside my JSON data, I'm just going to write status success. Okay, message will be you are logged in successfully. Logged in successfully. Okay, and we should also give the token and the user ID. This is all the data that I'm basically sending back as a response of this login call. Okay, so user ID, that will be user dot underscore ID. So this is our logic for logging in the user. Okay, you can read about it, and over here you should also understand why we created this method and pre-save hooks. Okay, so this is all that we need for the authentication purpose. Now there is one last thing left, and that is the protect middleware. Now this protect middleware, we have to first of all create it. You will understand the logic that I'm going to write, but the purpose will be more clear when we set up the routing. So for now, just try to understand why we are writing the logic inside this product, what it's going to do. Okay, so let me check. This stream is running for 1 hour 5 minutes, so I think it's best if we just end it over here, and in the next one we are going to set up our protect middleware. Okay, and as a next step I want to do one more thing, which is let me just go to the dashboard, and over here inside profile you can see we have to create the APIs for updating the password as well as updating the profile. In profile updation, we have two forms, updating image and the other details. So basically, we need to create three more endpoints, one for update password, one for profile image update. Here we are also going to see how to make use of storage bucket. Okay, and for this one we just need to make a simple post call. So we'll see that in the next one. These three API calls will be made along with this one. This let me tell you, we also have this thing left, which is our protect middleware. So the task for next live stream is to build our protect middleware, and along with that we are going to set up the routing for all the endpoints that have been made already. Then we are going to also integrate it into our client side. We are going to create three more APIs for this profile and update password. So our application will start working in the next video. Okay, it will be functional. Then the only thing that will be left is to make this DM part totally functional. For this one, actually, we are going to start writing our socket.io APIs. That means we'll make use of socket.io to build this real-time functionality. And for the last part of this application, which is our audio video call, we are going to make use of both WebSocket as well as socket.io. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Okay, if you have any doubts, you can ask me in the comment section, and also make sure to join our Discord server. The link is given in the channel page. Thank you everyone for joining in. I'll see you in the next one.